I think I am. I think I'm now live. Hey, sorry about that, gang. I think I'm finally live. Yeah, sorry guys. My computer was like totally out of storage, so I just straight up I couldn't live stream because it was out of storage. So that was really silly. I had to go clear tons of I had to clear like hundreds and hundreds of gigabytes of storage to be able to stream. So what's up, everybody, man? Back. Welcome to a brand new stream. How's everybody doing? Sorry I'm late, guys. Yeah, I had to get rid of hundreds of gigabytes of storage to be able to stream. But I'm here, and I'm ready. And I'm so tired, as freaking always. How's it going, guys? What's up, Rick? Thank you so much for tuning in, man. Thank you for all your help putting together this Methuselah stuff. I really appreciate you. What's up, Fabric? How's it going, Fabric Creative? How's it going, Connor? How's it going, Paleo? How's it going, Saturn Dusk? What's up? Thank you for tuning in. King Kiryu, thank you for tuning in. What's up, Childish? How's it going? How's it going? Oh, thank you so much, Robert. Welcome from Maine. Thank you. It sounds like I'm not the only one, huh, Saturn Dusk? Gosh, I'm so tired, I can feel it in my face. Oh, thank you so much, King Kiryu. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, let's just get into it, all right? Yeah, Jojo, I will never forget when the Godzilla King of the Monsters second trailer came out and there was that shot of the mountain moving. It was really cool. My initial reaction to it was like, oh man, that's really sweet. There's going to be new monsters in this movie. New monsters. It's pretty cool. Apparently, I was the only one who had that reaction because for months I was on the offensive trying to prove that it was not Anguirus. Going through every single interview Michael Dougherty had done, going through all the tweets he was doing, trying to find as much evidence to say like, hey, we wouldn't know if it was going to be a Toho monster. Like, we would know by now. It's got to be a new guy. And people called me crazy for it. Nobody wanted to believe it. Everybody wanted to believe in the Anguirus hype. It was Rodan confirmed all over again. I looked like a big old jerk for saying it wasn't Kamunga coming up out of the oil rig. It wasn't Anguirus coming onto the mountain. It was someone else or new monsters. And oh, but I had to be the bad guy. As always. Well, look who's laughing now. None of us. Because it was a new monster and we lost him to copyright anyways. What's up, Alpha Dragon? How's it going, man? I haven't seen the video yet, and I was staying long. As a side note, check out my latest gotcha figure haul in the Discord. Ah, will do. That sounds cool. Hopefully you got some sick stuff. What's this little +1 down here? Engage with your audience. Oh, and then I can start a Q&A or I can start a poll. Start a Q&A? Is that not what this whole thing is? I see. Anguirus was a skeleton at least. That's very true, and he got blown up. Thank you, Kiryu. Thank you. Oh man, why is my face so tired? Yo, remember when somebody thought Mothra was Gamera from trailer 2 of King of the Monsters? Official Sen. Mothra was Gamera? I don't actually know if I remember that. I remember there was memes where people would meme Gamera and Godzilla vs. Kong as the Heaves, but I don't remember anybody actually thinking Gamera was gonna be in it. Well, anyways, for those of you who don't know, and thank you so much, Toho fan, I really appreciate that. For those of you who don't know, I just dropped a major video going into a very big lawsuit that happened within the world of Godzilla. So, In 2019, Godzilla King of the Monsters came out and introduced us to a couple new monsters. One of them was Scylla, which was like, you know, a big spider slash octopus slash crab thing. The other one was Methuselah. I mean, there was also a behemoth who was like a big woolly mammoth sloth. There was also Methuselah. Methuselah was a giant, basically giant turtle mountain, right? Like, that's probably the closest we could say. It was like a mountain that was alive. It was really awesome. It made a really big impact in King of the Monsters trailer 2 because it just communicates such immense scale right off the bat, you know, and a lot of it a mystery. You know, you can go out into the real world and find strange rock formations and be like, oh man, there it is. That's a Titan. You know, it was really cool. And it just created a lot of hype. Well, meanwhile, what we didn't know is a smaller creator with the name Summit Kaiju got pretty upset about this. Summit Kaiju had created a mountain kaiju of their own a couple of years before, in 2017. And over the next year, they built a case, and in 2021, they took Legendary to court saying that Legendary stole their monster. Stole him. And they got messy from there. I made, like I said, a giant video going very in-depth with that case. I highly recommend going and checking it out. Even if you've already, like, even if you watch this live stream and you're like, okay, I'm caught up to date, go show that video some love regardless, because the more people see that video, the more people we can reach with this information, and the more we can get, you know, the more support we can get behind the cause of saving Methuselah. And honestly, I don't know what how we can save Methuselah. Like, I don't know what that will look like, but I think we can accomplish something together if we work positively as a fan base, not harassing people, but if we work positively as a fan base, I think that we can get answers at the very least, you know? So go to that video, show that video some love, like the video, share the video, hype the video. Hyping is a new thing. That's actually my first video, I think, that I've noticed that's gotten into like 1,000 hype points, which is pretty cool. So thank you guys so much for all the support on that. Yeah, it's like the first video that I've seen that's gotten that much hype. So if you go like the video and hype the video, it will reach more people, and share the video. I think the best case scenario is that the absolute best case scenario is that somehow Summit Kaiju folds and is like, screw it, put Methuselah back in the MonsterVerse, go for it. I don't think that's gonna happen. I think a more realistic scenario that we can hope for is a scenario where enough of us voice our opinions that we want to see Methuselah back. And it's not even a matter of like if you like Methuselah, as much as it's a matter of it's not a unique enough monster to outright ban from the MonsterVerse because someone else has created something sort of similar to it, you know? It's not unique enough to ban from the MonsterVerse. So it's a case of standing up for basically all monsters, and I'll get into that here in a second, but I think the best we could get is answers on what happened, and potentially Legendary to see there is a fan base actively ready for Methuselah, and to redesign him and re-put him into the MonsterVerse. If you're wondering if that's even a possibility, it is a possibility. Doug got a comic book spin-off in the MonsterVerse Declassified, right? So Doug, a character who has all of 5 seconds of screen time in Godzilla vs. Kong, has such a vocal fan base online that they start making plushies of him with the MonsterVerse Omnibus collection, and then they give him his own spin-off. So I think if enough fans voice their opinion, they'll be like, yes, let's do this. Let's give Methuselah a storyline in a MonsterVerse Declassified or something like that, or bring him back in a movie. He'll probably need to be redesigned because there is a settlement. Summit Kaiju settled this lawsuit in 2022. Now, for those of you wondering, I've seen some of you guys wondering, why am I just now getting to this? Well, to be honest with you guys, I heard about this lawsuit back in 2023. It's possible I heard about it in 2022, but whenever I heard of it, I was not up to date on news. And I honestly, I didn't cover it because A, I heard that it was dismissed and I did not think much of it. And B, I didn't think it'd have a lot of impact. I thought if anything, Legendary would pay Summit Kaiju and move on, and then they just put Methuselah back into the movies. I didn't realize that a major condition of the lawsuit was the banning of Methuselah outright from future use. That was not on my radar. I eventually met Summit Kaiju in 2024 and spoke to him, and he told me about the resolution of the lawsuit, or at least he told me a little bit about the resolution of the lawsuit. And that's kind of where I was like, okay, so this is a bit more of a bigger deal than I thought it was. That didn't go the way that I thought it did. And then, you know, people started to discover the case on their own. I would say earlier this year is really when it took off. You know, Kaiju Canuck made a wonderful video going in depth with the lawsuit, and then a follow-up live stream going in depth with it. Rick the Squirrel's out there fighting the good fight, starting the Save Methuselah hashtag, which you guys should all definitely use. And so it's now getting more attention in the fan base because people are talking about it. I didn't talk about it after I met Summit Kaiju because I felt very awkward about it. After I've met the guy who initiated the lawsuit, I felt very awkward about moving forward with talking about it because I've met the guy. Like, it felt strange to discuss after I've already met him in person and mentioned it in person with him, you know? So it was not something that I really wanted to talk about, but enough people started asking for me to, you know, do talk about this over time that I figured it was time. So I went really in depth with the lawsuit. I was kind of uninformed about it until recently. Another reason I didn't talk about it. So I went really in depth with it. I learned as much as I could, and that's what led to my video. I did request a bunch of the court dockets and all sorts of the legal information that is out there. You know, it's all public, technically speaking. You just need to be able to find it first. So I should have to wait like 5 to 10 days, and then I can get access to a lot more of the court documents. But we'll see. We'll see if I find anything of note there. But yeah, for now, the best thing we can do is just talk about it. We can discuss the situation, spread the word so that other fans are like aware, and kind of like use the hashtag Save Methuselah to get the word out that we're interested in this character. I think that's going to be a really big part of it. I do have some follow-up thoughts that I can discuss here following up on my video about the situation. So again, highly recommend you go check that video out. If nothing else, just because watching the video, supporting the video in whatever ways, first of all, you'll be very informed if you watch that video. I go so freaking in depth with it, more than I'm going to go here probably. And then number two, because the more that video gets supported, the more people it will reach. The more people it will reach, the better chance we get of getting Methuselah back. Yes, Jojo. This is exactly what I said in my video. I exactly was talking about that in the Methuselah video. One of Summit Kaiju's arguments is that Methuselah is like part mountain, part monster, right? Great. That doesn't mean that they stole your idea. What it means is that they're sticking to the rules of the MonsterVerse, at least the rules as of that point. You have to remember, Godzilla King of the Monsters is only the third MonsterVerse entry. What are the rules of the monsters in the MonsterVerse up to that point? We know, like, Godzilla is his own thing. We know the Muto are a parasite that feeds on Godzilla that are something of a mammal/insect. And then Kong Skull Island really is what starts the actual lore of the MonsterVerse. And Kong Skull Island came up with a very, very cool way of creating their monsters. Well, Kong doesn't technically fit this aesthetic, and the Skullcrawler doesn't technically fit it either. All of the other monsters on Skull Island are what they call flora fauna. You know, it's part plant, part animal. You've got the buffalo that rises up, the buffalo which looks like a mountain rising out of the water. I love that shot. The buffalo's all covered in vines and stuff, and he's supposed to kind of be a little bit of like a little plant-ish. Then you've got the spore mantis who's like straight up part insect, part tree. And then you've got the mother longlegs that are like part bamboo, part insect. So a lot of what they were doing was creating these flora fauna monsters. Technically speaking, Houston Brooks' audio logs state that these skull crawlers are also flora fauna, I think. I'm pretty sure. I can't totally remember, but I think. And so Methuselah fits that aesthetic so wonderfully. Methuselah does, Behemoth does. They fit that aesthetic so wonderfully. Where, yeah, exactly. Like the Bramble Boar. The Bramble Boar, the reason I loved it so much in Monarch Legacy of Monsters is because it's one of the first monsters to fit the aesthetic, in my opinion, that the MonsterVerse had created for its monsters in a while. I don't think Adam Wingard's monsters totally fit that aesthetic. And I don't think all of them need to. Like, I don't think his needed to. I'm just saying it was really cool to see us go back to the earlier style. I thought. I really liked that. So yeah, I mean, like, Rodan doesn't. I mean, Rodan actually does, because Rodan is biovolcanic. He's part rock. Is a volcano not a mountain? Is Rodan not a flying mountain? A flying on fire mountain? Is that not what he is? Rodan is made of magma. His, like, core is magma, and the exterior is volcanic rock. That's the same shit, man. That's the same shit as Methuselah. Methuselah was really cool because it's part, as Michael Dougherty described it, he's part rock, part, what did Dougherty say? It was like part, I actually have it written down. I'll just look at what he wrote, but, a hybrid monster that is part animal, plant, and rock, which you can see on the monster. You know, he's got the vines growing off of him. He's got the trees growing off of him. He's also very much rock-like, but then it has to be an animal to be alive. So what I like about that is that it goes back to the MonsterVerse's aesthetic of basically taking things that we see in the real world and being like, that could be a monster, which is great. I freaking love that, man. So it frustrates me that by sticking to the aesthetic of the MonsterVerse, they're essentially being punished because some guy also had a similar idea, which, if you've seen my video, I show isn't a unique idea. First of all, monsters like that have been done since the Ultraman days. Mountain monsters have been done since the Ultraman days. And beyond that, I came up with the freaking monster that looks so similar, in my opinion, to Methuselah at the age of like 12. So it's not that unique. It's not that special. Which is one of the reasons why it's like almost more frustrating that we have to be fighting over Methuselah. Where it's like, he's not that special, gang. It's just the fact that they're trying to take him away from us. And also, one thing that I love about Methuselah in the lore is that he's one of the only confirmed protector titans. One of the only ones that is confirmed to be a good guy who looks out for humanity, you know. The bio data, or the like bio card from Methuselah states that he would relocate civilizations on his back, and then we actually see that in Drew Edward Johnson's artwork for Godzilla Dominion. And like Behemoth is a protector titan, but Behemoth, it seems, protects like trees and nature and stuff. Methuselah had a very unique experience in the MonsterVerse as being one of the only ones that has a connection to humanity. It's like Methuselah, Mothra, and Kong. So big bummer to lose him. Anyways, I do want to get into some of the notes I have here about my video, right? So I posted my video. It's gotten quite a big response, which I really appreciate. I've had a lot of people reach out to me about it with different thoughts. One person reached out to me. I'm going to move it over to my screens here. I think this is the screen I want. So one person reached out to me with a big correction they wanted me to cover, which I actually disagree with this individual about, but I guess we can talk about it. So I showed off this concept art in the video. This is concept art of a big spider for Godzilla King of the Monsters. One of the arguments in the legal complaint is that, one of the arguments in the legal complaint is that Legendary and Michael Dougherty wanted to use Toho Kaiju or Toho monsters for Godzilla King of the Monsters, but couldn't afford them. So they swapped them to, like their own original monsters, or they just, in this case, stole, as the legal complaint argues, Batholet, which is the monster on the far side of the screen. Batholet is Summit Kaiju's monster designed by Dope Pope, way over there. Down here is obviously the concept art of Methuselah, and in my opinion, Methuselah bears striking resemblance to Anguirus, a monster who Michael Dougherty very vocally expressed on multiple occasions he wanted to include Anguirus in Godzilla King of the Monsters, so much so that he snuck an illegal Easter egg into the movie to support that, right? Seems likely to me, personally, that if the theory is to be held true, which I don't think it is, and I can prove that later, I think I have a smoking gun to totally annihilate that argument. But let's just say, if they were going to use Toho monsters and they swapped them, it seems likely to me Anguirus got turned into Methuselah. So this spider down here is rumored online to potentially be Kumonga. I don't know where that rumor comes from, to be honest with you. Let me see if I have the artist name written down. I have a lot of the concept artist names written down, but I actually don't think I have the artist for this Kumonga art. I don't know who the artist behind that Kumonga art is, so it's hard to say. Now, we do know that other artists literally did include Toho monsters in their concept art. In some cases, they actually did include Kumonga, right? Kumonga turned into, and like, if we're going with the like they replace them theory, Kumonga would probably turn into Scylla, right? That's the closest thing. Well, I did get one very passionate person messaging me about this situation, and they wanted to clarify that they don't agree with my assessment that that concept art down there is Kumonga. Again, I'm not the one saying it's Kumonga. I'm saying that's what's been reported online. It's been reported online that it's been Kumonga. They think that that's Abaddon. I very much disagree. Abaddon obviously comes out in Kong Survivor Instinct. We do know Kong Survivor Instinct has been in development since before Godzilla vs. Kong came out, but we do not know how long they've been in development. Seems like they started after Godzilla King of the Monsters. I think it's very likely that Abaddon spun off after the fact, you know. It's also possible they returned to this concept art of the spider to create Abaddon. Either way, I don't really think that changes the argument at all. Like, so what? They wanted Abaddon, but they changed it to Scylla. It doesn't really matter to the core point that I'm arguing, which is that I don't see a world where the legal complaint argues, and I'll show you guys. I can move it over to the legal complaint here. This is the legal complaint. It argues that they swapped Gigan for Methuselah. But there's other monsters in this concept art that could have become Methuselah. King Kong's in this concept art for some odd reason. He becomes Behemoth, if we're saying it's a one-to-one. This thing, I actually think whatever this creature is, would become Methuselah. The spider, which they have conveniently cropped out of the frame, would become Scylla. I think they cropped the spider out of the frame to imply that this thing becomes like spider. I think they're implying that this thing becomes Scylla. Then you've got this guy right here, which is the Muto, which I actually argue looks more mountainish in this photo than this lump in the background. And then, yeah, I don't know. You cannot draw a one-to-one, but this legal complaint is arguing that they're using Gigan, that the Gigan was going to appear, despite all of the story implications that would have, despite the fact that it makes absolutely no sense in the context of the movie Godzilla King of the Monsters. They argue that Gigan was supposed to show up and they swapped it to Methuselah, which I very much disagree with. I don't agree with that at all. There's no evidence to support that. As I go very in-depth in my video, again, check that video out when this live stream's over, there's nothing to support that at all. And there's a lot to support against that argument. So anyways, that was the first thing I wanted to mention, was just that somebody reached out to me and they wanted me to clarify that artwork of the spider could be Abaddon. I don't personally think it is, but it very well could be. Next thing is that I saw a lot of people, I totally forgot about this. This is actually crazy. I'll have to pull this up. I totally forgot to include this. This blew my mind when I found it today. So, you know how one of my arguments here is that it seems likely that they have swapped Anguirus to Methuselah. We all know, I think all of us here are willing to acknowledge that the concept art for Godzilla King of the Monsters doesn't go terribly far. Like, in terms of the monsters bowing to Godzilla. There's tons of concept art of tons of classic monsters, from Gigan to freaking Gamera, who's not a Toho monster, who they would never have the rights to and never be able to license. Well, look at this. I didn't even notice this, but in Christopher Schei's artwork of Godzilla, all the monsters bowing to Godzilla, there he is, Anguirus, in the background right there. Now, I can't see this on the digital version of the photo. I had to pull it up. This is a screenshot someone else took of the art book for Godzilla King of the Monsters, but there's Anguirus right there. It looks like actually Anguirus 2004. But if you're going to try and argue that they replaced, which is such a weird argument, Gigan with Methuselah, which I think the reason they're making that argument is because Gigan looks nothing like Methuselah. So to say like they went from Gigan to Methuselah makes him look pretty bad. Like, there's no way you go from the design of Gigan to the design of Methuselah. You just don't go from that. It's too big of a leap, right? So it makes it seem like they had to have some other outside inspiration to get there. I think that's the way they're trying to like mislead you, right? They're trying to make it seem like, yes, they wanted Gigan. They came up with something so different. Wouldn't it look more like Gigan? The same way I pointed out, like, doesn't it seem like a little suspicious that they would crop the spider out of this photo to make it seem like the spider becomes the spider becomes the spider, which means Gigan becomes this guy, which does seem like a huge leap. Well, if you're going to make that argument because Gigan appears in this concept art and Doherty expressed interest in using Gigan, you know who Doherty expressed more interest in using and outright said he like wanted so bad that he snuck an illegal Easter egg into his movie? Anguirus, a monster who's far more similar to Methuselah. The same Anguirus who appears in this freaking concept art. It's just like, you can't make that argument that the monsters that appear in the concept art matter. They don't matter. You can't make that argument. They were placeholder monsters. If they did matter, they'd be consistent from one concept artist to the next, and they're not. You know, one concept artist will depict Anguirus. The next, as you see, the next concept art will depict a whole bunch of like made up mumbo jumbo dragon looking things. So it's ridiculous to argue that there's a one-to-one correlation from the concept art to the film. It's just, it makes me so frustrated at how disingenuous that argument comes across. It just seems really, really like a big stretch to me. Like I said, Gamera appears in a lot of the concept art. Gamera appears in more concept art than Anguirus does. Gamera appears in 2 different concept art pieces. Anguirus, then Gigan. Gamera appears in 2 concept art pieces. Gigan only appears in 1. They never intended to use Gamera. They never intended to use him. So, yeah, no kidding, Rick. Yeah, in the same concept art of the monsters bowing to Godzilla, King Kong's there. Yeah, I'm reading the chat. King Kong's there. It doesn't make sense for King Kong to be there because first of all, it's not even the same King Kong. It's like Peter Jackson's King Kong. So are there 2 King Kongs in the MonsterVerse now that are both about the same size? It just is so frustrating how disingenuous it is. I do have some other stuff I want to talk about too. So people started to point out other popular iterations of monsters with mountains on their back. One popular iteration some people brought up, like I brought up the idea of the world turtle. Well, a lot of people brought up the idea that Stephen King has actually a very famous depiction of a world turtle. It's the one in the It mythology, which I actually think also links to the Dark Tower mythology. So like the world turtle is very popular even in like going out in terms of like normie artwork or no art. Sorry, I read Rick put art in the chat and I just stole it into my sentence. But even in terms of like popular culture. I remember like what are they called? New rock stars making videos talking about the world turtle in its mythology when that 2017 film came out. A lot of other people pointed out Kronos from God of War, which he's not a monster with a mountain on his back, but he sure does have a freaking mountain on his back. That looks very similar to Batholet. Looks more similar to Batholet than Methuselah does, my opinion. This one is called Zora Magdoros? I don't know. From Monster Hunter World. He's kind of like a turtle looking guy with the mountain on his back and flames coming out of it. Looks like he's carrying a volcano on his back. And a lot of people pointed out the lion turtle from Avatar: The Last Airbender, which I thought that this was really, really compelling. Like, come on. He's got the full-on mountains on his back. He's got the tusks that Methuselah has. If anything, it seems way more likely that a very, very popular piece of pop culture, Avatar: The Last Airbender, would inspire something like Methuselah, who's obviously taking a lot of inspiration from like mythological, different myths and like mythological depictions over time, you know, and this Avatar character feels very mythological, feels very Miyazaki. And I feel like that's one thing that they tried to channel a lot with Godzilla King of the Monsters and the MonsterVerse overall, was this kind of sense of like Miyazaki and wonder. Yeah, I've seen, I didn't bring him up, but a lot of people brought up Torterra in Pokemon as well, and specifically in Detective Pikachu. I guess there's a scene, I don't remember, I've seen that movie, but I don't remember, I kind of remember this scene where a mountain stands up and it turns out to be an enormous Torterra turtle thing. And that was the same year as Godzilla King of the Monsters. That was also 2019. Obviously, that Pokemon has existed for a lot longer than Detective Pikachu, the movie. But my point being that, like, the same year as Godzilla King of the Monsters, there's another depiction of a giant mountain standing up. And you know who didn't go after them? Summit Kaiju didn't go after them. Is it because the Pokemon was designed long before? Or is it just because he, for some reason, targeted his... you know the saying, like, don't crap where you eat? He grew his platform off of the back of Godzilla. He works for X Plus, and yet he directly goes after Godzilla. That feels weird to me. I don't know why you would do that. There's Gamera monsters with mountains on their back. I know they all exist long before. They all have existed for long before. So the only reason is just because of the proximity. Godzilla King of the Monsters comes out after the fact. It's like the first mountain monster that comes out after the fact. And the proximity of the fear that an artist got inspired by Dope Pope's work on Batholet and took it. And I can understand that. Like I said in my video, I understand wanting to pursue legal action. I don't think I agree at all about how it resolved, but I understand if I was in that position, being afraid that they maybe took inspiration from my work. I would have to acknowledge the fact that inspiration is fine. Like Summit's logo, this one right here that's dancing around, it looks to me like a depiction of Godzilla, where they've turned his dorsal plates into mountains. And then obviously afterward, they create Batholet. The full-on Batholet that you see down below that was created by Dope Pope. So, like, do you see what I'm saying here? It's like you already took inspiration. So you're going to come after someone else for also taking inspiration? If they did, which they never prove. In the legal complaint, they never prove that anybody took inspiration from Dope Pope's work. They just bring up a few instances where it's possible somebody saw Dope Pope's work. Possible they did. Just because it's possible doesn't mean it happened. And even if it did happen, do we care? I do think that there's enough of a difference between Batholet and Methuselah. I think there's to legally be like plagiarism or whatever, or in IP law, I don't know what it would actually be called. Not plagiarism, but like theft or whatever. IP infringement. To legally be infringement on your IP, it has to be, I think it has to be like 80% has to be unchanged. I think that's what it is. Like 80% has to be unchanged. And I would argue, even in a world where Methuselah is inspired by Batholet, I think over 80% has been changed, personally. But I don't think Methuselah was inspired by Batholet. You're far more likely to take inspiration from the far more mainstream and popular iterations of a mountain monster than you are from some fan monster that's only got traction within a very small circle. And believe it or not everybody who works on Godzilla movies is a Godzilla fan. Not everybody who does concept art for these Godzilla movies is a Godzilla fan. Some people just do concept art because it's the job they got, you know? So maybe they're going to take more inspiration from not the niche Godzilla fandom, but instead from mainstream pop culture, where there's plenty of iterations and depictions of monsters with mountains on their back. And I wonder, how far would this have stretched? I'm not going to pull up a picture of it, but Summit Kaiju also has a goat kaiju. There's a goat kaiju that he created. It's like a 6-legged goat, I think, and then it's got like spikes on its back. Well, Godzilla King of the Monsters was also considering a goat kaiju. They were considering many kaiju. They were considering a boar kaiju. They were considering an elk kaiju. They were considering all sorts of other kaiju. Now, what to say if they introduced this goat kaiju? I don't know what kaiju this was actually supposed to be. Like, what titan was this supposed to be? I'm not sure. Would he have gone after the goat as well? Would the argument then become, what's the coincidence that they would include a mountain and a goat? Well, I'll tell you why you did it, because mountain goats go together. Mountain goats go with mountains. But this goat is because they were doing lots of monsters. Like they had a mountain lion, in fact. That's kind of interesting now that I think about it. There's like 3 mountain monsters that are tied, that are in the like King of the Monsters artwork. There's a mountain lion. There's whatever that goat is, which I love that goat thing. I think it looks really cool. Even though it looks barely changed from a goat, but it looks very Miyazaki. And then there's obviously Methuselah. So I don't know if there was like a little mountain theme going on. Again, like I said, it does feel like Miyazaki is the inspo, the template here, which he was for Kong Skull Island as well. So would he have gone after our goat guy? You know, that's my point. Like, where do we draw the line? A monster with a mountain on its back is not unique. We can come up with even more examples of monsters with mountains on their back. I think that there is more than a 20% difference between Methuselah and Batholet. I don't know, man. Free little bro, Methuselah boy. Methuselah, my boy, is not guilty. I'm with you, Connor. What if Batholet was brought into the MonsterVerse just to get I don't think he would allow a Final Wars treatment like what happened to Zilla to Batholet. I think after all of that, maybe beforehand he would have been game. Like maybe that would have been a cool way to get your monster into the MonsterVerse. But nowadays, I think there's no chance. You can only get sued if your mountain monster is green. Yeah, well, that's about the only... Well, no, because look at the Avatar one, man. Why is Avatar not involved in this? The Avatar one's got green all over his back. Literally, the best thing Legendary can do is still use the exact same Methuselah. Same guy, same lore, same consciousness, but they make him... like evolved Godzilla, different colors and such. So my thoughts on the matter, which I'll talk about later, I think the best play, would be to reintroduce Methuselah and just say he changed, you know. He shed his mountains, so he looks a little different now. But the face is the same, the lore is the same character. Just he looks a little different. Yeah, he evolved. I think that's your best play. Maybe moved into Hollow Earth and he comes out and he's like, well, Hollow Earth radiation hits different. I look all different now. I'm all covered in Hollow Earth crystals. This is something that Rick pointed out to me. Thank you for pointing this out, Rick. But this right here, that's the Methuselah artwork that appears in Godzilla Dominion. I think even they know that there's more than a 20% difference between this Methuselah artwork and Batholet, considering they did not go after it in the lawsuit. This artwork, while cropped, its appearance is cropped in Godzilla Dominion, does not appear in the MonsterVerse Omnibus collection. I theorized in my video that maybe the reason that this Methuselah artwork doesn't appear in Dominion is the Omnibus is a condition of the lawsuit. Like maybe they're not allowed to use Methuselah in new entries moving forward. That was my fear, is what that confirmed, because I think technically speaking, by including the Dominion into an omnibus collection, it technically counts as a new copyrightable work. Rather than just re-releasing Dominion, which they can still do freely, I think you can still buy Dominion on Amazon. Rather than just re-releasing Dominion, you are creating a new copyrightable work out of it. The MonsterVerse Omnibus Collection. It's its own copyrightable work, which means, in theory, it would be a copyright violation to then include Methuselah in it moving forward. Same way that I don't actually think, personally, I don't think that they would be allowed to use stock footage of Methuselah moving forward anymore. As we understand it, based on the very limited information we have, the evidence we have suggests that we would not be able to see Methuselah again. Like, there's no Methuselah mentioned in New Empire at all. Not one. He appears in the intro credits for Godzilla vs. Kong, and that very well could be the last time we ever see him. Very possible that we're not allowed to get Methuselah stock footage reused. Which I feared was being confirmed by this page's exclusion from the MonsterVerse Omnibus collection. Rick the Squirrel pointed out, which I really appreciate, this artwork only appeared on a copyright page, where like one page had the credits for like who wrote and worked on the Dominion, and then the next page was this, which was like a filler page to get to the comic itself. A lot of the copyright pages don't actually appear in the Omnibus collection, which means it seems more plausible that it was a pure coincidence that Methuselah was excluded. Like, lots of those copyright pages don't make it to the Omnibus. So it's not that they straight up replaced it with different artwork as much as they omitted the whole page along with other pages in the process. So that's a point to say we still don't know. It's possible we can get Methuselah back in some capacity through stock footage and through a redesign. It seems more likely now than it did if this artwork was deliberately omitted from the MonsterVerse Omnibus because of Methuselah. You know what I mean? So I appreciate Rick for pointing that out. That would suck though if the last time we ever see Methuselah in the MonsterVerse is the GVK opening credits, where it sort of implies that Methuselah was killed by Godzilla because those credits were really silly and whack. It gave Godzilla way too many feats that he didn't achieve. Defeated my ass. They didn't even fight you, bro. They're on your team. Do you defeat somebody who's already on your team? Anyways. This is my smoking gun, okay? Do you remember the X-rays? Huh? Let's jump back for one moment. Lawsuit alleges, big claim here, that they were going to use Gigan in Godzilla King of the Monsters, but couldn't because of copyright, because he cost too much. They couldn't afford him. So instead, they made up Methuselah. Well, they go on to explain that this happens in July of 2018. Like, Methuselah was not produced until July 2018. That's great. So we're claiming that this laid into production. What's up, D Manager? You missed a big video I dropped on a lawsuit in the Godzilla world that I'm going through right now. Throughout this, actually, they claim consistently, like 2018, Doherty reviews Dope Hope's profile. As of 2017, Doherty states he still needs to decide on what non-Toho Kaiju to include in the film. October 2017 is when they start promoting Batholet. When in, oh, he says October. Okay, this is even better. So they're saying in October 2017, he still needed to decide on the non-Toho Kaiju to appear in the film. I don't know why I'm a better lawyer than the lawyers Legendary hired. I'm certainly a less expensive one. Because let's go check this claim out. All right, let's find out. In October 2017, what was up with the Titans? Was it potentially that we were going to still be using Gigan, Anguirus, and Biolante like Doherty said he wanted to? Let's go find out. Absolutely not. These were made during pre-production for Godzilla King of the Monsters. They appear on screen during Godzilla King of the Monsters. They're not just there put in post-production. This is on set. This was seen by people on the set tour. The set tour that happened when? When did the set tour happen? Well, it happened on September 6th, 2017. These X-ray artworks were seen in the Castle Bravo set on September 6th, 2017 by reporters like Toho Kingdom and alike. They're unfinished concept arts of the Titans. They show all 17 and counting from Godzilla King of the Monsters. But they are the Titans, the names, everything. The Methuselah one looks like nothing. Like, I'll concede that they don't have the design finalized here. At all. A lot of these guys don't have the designs finalized. But it shows they had ideas of where the designs were heading. And it shows they had the names picked out. You're not going to include the X-rays on set in the movie, which do appear throughout the film, if you have absolutely no concept of what monsters you're going to use, as the lawsuit alleges. If you're wondering when Godzilla King of the Monsters finished production, well, it wrapped shooting, which means by the latest, all of these had to be designed by September 17th, 2017, with additional photography ending on August 22nd, 2017. So by August 22nd, 2017, they had decided on Tiamat, what is the King of the Monsters one? Baphomet, not Batholet, Baphomet, Tiamat, Scylla, all of them, Typhon, all those guys, at the very possible latest by August 22nd, 2017. Again, they don't have a full design for Methuselah. They don't have a full design for him, but they know that they're going to use a monster called Methuselah. So then what are we talking about here? Claiming that as of October 2017, Doherty had no idea what non-Toho Kaiju to include. What are we saying up here? That he was going to use Gigan and switched it to Methuselah, and Methuselah came out in 2018. Like, what the hell, man? They started promoting Batholet in October 2017. So information on Batholet comes out in October 2017. After they've filmed and they go, oh, I got a great idea. I'm going to go back in time and put that on set. This argument is so broken that they were going to use the Toho monsters but couldn't get the rights, so they stole Methuselah. Even if we're saying they took inspiration from the design of Batholet to make the claim that they couldn't get the rights to Toho monsters, so they stole Methuselah from Summit Kaiju and his Batholet monster, it just doesn't make sense to me. When we can see right here in 2017, they've already got the monsters picked out. Thank you so much, Saturn Dusk. Thank you so much for commenting. Thank you for being a part of D-Force for 8 months now. That's crazy. Same reason you're better at keeping up with the lore of the MonsterVerse. Yeah, because I spend more time with it, which is the weird part to think about. I think the time I've spent with Godzilla King of the Monsters eclipses the time Michael Doherty spent with Godzilla King of the Monsters. He only had to live with it for a couple years. I've lived with it for my entire life, damn it. Yeah. You better call Saul, man. And in this case, I'm Saul. The real thing is that they didn't count on somebody like me who's kept all of the receipts forever. I've kept all the Doherty interviews. I've kept all of it. I still have it all. I didn't count on somebody like me coming in and saying, hey, wait a minute, that doesn't check out. Again, I want to acknowledge here, they don't have the design for Methuselah picked out. Like, I don't remember where Methuselah is on these images. Can I even zoom in and find it? Oops, let me turn this x-ray off. Where is he? Which one is he? I don't even know if I can zoom in and find it. I see Leviathan, I see Mothra. Abaddon, Binyip. Methuselah might be on the second scroll page of these, but like it doesn't look like the Methuselah from the film. So they don't have the full design picked out, you know. It's under Leviathan. Am I blind? Is that really Methuselah right there? I'm that blind? Oh, there he is. You're totally right. He's right in the dead center. Yeah, I don't know what I'm looking at there. It looks kind of insect-ish. I don't know what I'm looking at here. It's definitely not the Methuselah design from Godzilla King of the Monsters. So I will concede that they don't have the designs fully picked out, right? Like they don't know what he's going to wind up looking like. But to claim that they didn't know what monsters they were going to use is a lie. Because we can see right here that they have the monsters they were going to use. So, I don't know. Even if the design's not picked out yet, the monsters are. They're actively working on designing these monsters. I have a photo somewhere on my phone that I used to send my brother where I photoshopped Saul Goodman over myself in one of my videos. I don't know, man. I just think it's such a disingenuous argument to say that. Like it relies so much on a lack of context. I don't think Legendary would ever appeal the dismissal because I think they've probably waived the right to appeal the dismissal. So Summit Kaiju dropped the dismissal dropped the case without prejudice after they came to an agreement behind closed doors and a settlement was signed. He dropped the case without prejudice, which means he is not going to be able to reopen and relitigate this case in the future. I have to believe a key condition of that is that also Legendary will not reopen or relitigate this in the future. Like I gotta believe that's generally what Summit Kaiju would have, like he probably wouldn't have agreed to it otherwise, you know. Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, it's a lot less of Methuselah being a 20-second monster and a lot more of what is the degree of separation here? Yongari looks strikingly similar to Godzilla, as does half of the monsters Ultraman fights. Not even just the ones that stole the suit like Jiris. I'm talking monsters like Bimular. Is like 5 degrees of separation from Godzilla. Half of the monsters in Ultraman are like 1 degree of separation from a Godzilla monster. Baragon is the basis for like half of the monsters in Ultraman 66. So, where's the degree of separation here? This is the sandbox we as Kaiju fans are playing in. As far as the MonsterVerse goes, Scylla's not that different from the Muto. You know who the Muto's not that different from? The Mind Flayer in Stranger Things. Like, man, I remember how many memes came out about, like, America designing a monster, and it's Scylla and the Mind Flayer and Clover. They look very similar to Clover. What's the degree of separation here? Where do we draw the line? Because as far as I'm concerned, there's barely any similarities between these guys. The similarities are that they're on 4 legs and that they have mountains protruding from their back. That's all the similarities. Totally different faces. Like, I guess also that they're like made of rock. Sure. Batholet is very, very, very turtle based. I know I earlier described Methuselah as kind of like a turtle, but I don't know. I mean, honestly, Methuselah could be described as bullish, which we'll talk about here in a second. Methuselah's kind of got a bull's structure. He's got like a cow's body, right? He's got a cow's face with the bull horns, you know? And then he's just got the mountain protruding from his back. That's so different from what to me looks barely different from Gamera. As I also bring up in my big video, I eventually find a point where Batholet looks so similar to Gamera 2015. My point is just that so many of these things look similar. Yeah, and here's the other thing. So I did write this down, Rick, but I'll bring it up. Yeah. Where did I put it? I put it right here? No. Where did I put it? Maybe I did put it here. Here you go. Here's the novelization's description of Methuselah. And here is the concept art of Methuselah. All right. The Godzilla King of the Monsters novelization describes Methuselah as a bull-like, with a face like a bull, right? It had a face and horns like a bull from some ancient hell. Well, it is common knowledge that the novelizations for these movies are written before the final edit of the film. A lot of the time they're written so early on because they have to release at the same time as the movie that they're written based on prior drafts of the script, not even a finalized version of the script. So all we know that Greg Keyes, all we know that Greg Keyes knows based on this description is that Methuselah was going to be a monster that rose up like a mountain, not even literally stating that it is a mountain, but she saw the mountain standing up on 4 immense legs. Could that not be a description of any monster getting up? Could you not describe Godzilla in 1964 as looking like a mountain standing up? Or better yet, the one that looks like a fucking mountain, Godzilla Earth, when he erupts from the ground at the end of Godzilla the Planet Eater movie, came out in 2017. Does Godzilla not look like a mountain standing up on 2 immense legs? Like, I would argue Godzilla Earth is a case where it doesn't even look like a mountain. He is the goddamn mountain standing up on 2 immense legs. So yeah, it's clear to me that they knew that there was going to be a mountainish thing coming up from the ground, like the mountain is alive, but it looked like a bull. As you can see in this concept art, which supposedly this concept art is early drafts of Methuselah, which would check out because the final draft of Methuselah also kind of looks bullish. He definitely has that bull's face. He's definitely got those bull horns. So what are we doing here? Is Methuselah, is he not different enough from a turtle? A turtle with a mountain on its back? I don't, is it the mountain on its back really enough to say that we can never have another kaiju with a mountain on its back? That's it? That's all it takes? A mountain on its back and maybe stone? If they gave Methuselah 2 extra little arms, would that have been it? Would Summit have conceded and been like, no, that's the degree of separation I wanted. That's enough for me. All it takes is one more small change and I would have called it. Like what I'm saying might have happened here with this Dominion artwork where they don't bring up this Dominion artwork. Nowhere in the legal complaint do they bring up this Dominion artwork. Never brought up. Is it because they didn't know about it? I find that hard to believe. Summit's a part of the fan base. If Summit didn't know about Dominion, and Dominion is something we all know about, and we're all tapped into the Godzilla space, how the fuck can you argue that Batholet was something that all of us Godzilla fans knew about. Like, that's a big part of the legal complaint. We all know about Batholet. We're all up to date on Batholet. We all know about what's going on there. We're all aware of Summit Kaiju. He's a leader in the community. Maybe he didn't know about Dominion. Maybe he didn't know about Methuselah's appearance in it. Or maybe they looked at it and went, nah, it's got a slight degree of separation, so we'll call it. Godzilla King of the Monsters gives us no good shots of Methuselah. So you're blocking a monster on the idea of the monster more so than you are on the design of the monster. Which again, where do we draw the line? How many Godzilla ripoffs are at risk? How many fan monsters are at risk? It's so frustrating to me to be like, where, for real? What are we doing here? So, I'm wondering, what we need as a fan base to rally behind the Save Methuselah cause for is to try and get answers. We got to find out what happened in the settlement. We got to find out what they agreed upon. We got to find out what Legendary can and cannot do. And we got to find out what the extent of that is. If Summit gives them permission, are they allowed to use them? Are they allowed to use them, but Summit makes some money off of it? I'd be okay with that, to be honest with you. I'd be okay with it if they could use Methuselah and Summit gets a little bit of the money. I know a lot of people wouldn't be okay with that. I personally would be fine with it. I'm hoping that we can find out that part of the condition is that is a crazy, always never cloudy reference right here. But thank you for appreciating my old show. Anyways, I'm hoping that we can find out that they are allowed to use Methuselah moving forward so long as he's redesigned. Because, remember what I said earlier. Technically speaking, by repackaging a previously existing product, you are altering the product, especially if you give it a new name. It's a new copyright. The Godzilla novelization omnibus includes Godzilla 2014 and Godzilla King of the Monsters, and still includes the Methuselah passage. Thank you so much to Rick the Squirrel for sending me this. It still includes Methuselah. This is a new product license as of last year, which means Legendary is still using Methuselah as of last year. And they're actually still using him in his original design. Could be because part of the settlement with Summit mentions that they can re-release, that's what I'm saying. We need answers as to what the settlement is. Could be that they could re-release things like the MonsterVerse omnibus with the Methuselah artwork. And it was just a coincidence they cut it out. They could re-release the novelization with the Methuselah artwork. Or with the Methuselah passage, and it's fine. They could even potentially include stock footage of Methuselah, and it'd be fine. But as far... It was this year, was it? I guess I'm just thinking of when it was announced, but there you go. Rick says that the novelization omnibus was released this year. My point is, if they didn't alter the novelization, if they didn't change the design of Methuselah, it's potentially likely that we still have access to the Methuselah. I think most likely if they use Methuselah moving forward, they would have to come up with a new design for Methuselah, which I don't think is actually all that bad. Methuselah is a monster that can supposedly shapeshift. So I didn't add a picture of it. I'll have to add it right now. Give me a second. I'll find it. The Methuselah bio that was released. Here it is. Here, oh, it's huge. This Methuselah bio actually gives us a way out. It states that Methuselah kind of has the power of camouflage. It describes him as a sentinel with the power of camouflage, which means he's not only is he a good guy, which I think is so cool. I love that he's a good guy, but the power of camouflage. He has the ability to remain hidden in plain sight, the ability to blend into rocky environments such as mountain ranges, glaciers, and even islands. So Methuselah very well could take on a new shape in the new movie as part of the camouflage. Maybe he sheds the trees. Maybe he shakes some of the mountains off. Maybe he takes on a bit of a different form. Maybe there's more crystal-y stuff coming off of him because he spends more time in Hollow Earth. While the forest has claimed the rocky back of Methuselah according to this bio, it is not part of Methuselah's actual biology. The forest grew on top of Methuselah while it was dormant, which means if that creature keeps moving, it will wind up looking different, which actually kind of goes along with that Drew Edward Johnson artwork where you can see this is before. There's not as many trees formed on Methuselah. There's some temples built on his back, but there's not as many trees on him. The mountain range is also very different. Now, to be honest with you, I think that's a little bit because Drew Edward Johnson is not the most consistent at drawing the character designs, how they look in the movie, but I'm fine with that in this context. Like, Methuselah does have the ability to change the way it looks. I don't know why it would be a problem then to use this bio, to use the current canon of the MonsterVerse, to then give us a newly designed Methuselah. The novelization, like I said, it goes on to explain that Methuselah had the face and horns like a bull from some ancient hell, which is consistent with the original concept art. So maybe we lean back more into the original concept art. Maybe we kind of add some more of those bull features to Methuselah. You know, maybe we shake off some of the rocks on its back and make sure it's very distinct from Batholid. I think that that'd be totally fine, and it already fits the current canon of the MonsterVerse. What we need to find out by using the hashtag #SaveMethuselah, is it even possible? If we show there's a demand, we know that the Legendary Comics creators are generally aware of the online fan base. At the very least, generally. I think they're actually a little more aware than generally. I think they're actually kind of tapped in, but they're generally aware of the online fan base. And yeah, Rick, there's no reason to say Methuselah couldn't have a tail. I think he should have a tail, personally. Some of the concept art for Methuselah depicts him with a tail. I think he absolutely should have it. And I'm not even talking about the bull concept art. I'm talking about some of the mountain concept art for Methuselah depicts him with a tail. There's no reason he couldn't. As far as we see in the movie Godzilla King of the Monsters, we never actually see enough of Methuselah to say if it would have a tail. I think he could have a tail. So I like the idea that we could use the current canon of the MonsterVerse and push forward and get some answers. Now, I have also heard from people like Rick saying we should reach out to Greg Keyes. I'm totally down. I can reach out to Greg Keyes. I don't know if he'll answer me, but I can reach out to him on behalf of everybody and mention that what we're trying to do here. I have heard from some others that at the moment the expanded MonsterVerse has been told to refrain from mentioning, or showing, I should say, Methuselah. They've been told to refrain from showing Methuselah. Is it possible it's because meanwhile they have to come up with a new design and they haven't come up with a new design yet? Or is it because part of the settlement agreement says that they'll never show Methuselah again? We need answers. I think that's what we really should be seeking here, is not necessarily the resolution of getting Methuselah put back in a film, but getting answers as to what happened. And then as a fan base, we really need to decide and make it vocally clear if we think that that's okay. If we find out how the settlement went, let's say the settlement says they're no longer allowed to use Methuselah. As a fan base, I think it's pretty clear how I feel and how a lot of you guys feel. We got to decide, like, we can't legally decide what the degree of separation is. We can't legally decide if there's, you know, like, that's, like I said, I think it has to be something like an 80% remains unchanged. But we have to decide. Yeah, I didn't bring up the Dope Pope stuff, Rick. I guess I could. I don't know if he's comfortable with us talking about that. But we have to decide as a fan base, like, to stand up for what's the degree of separation that we as fans think is all right. Like, in the future, is it okay for another fan to go after a big studio because it has a monster vaguely similar? So picture this. I come up with this really original monster. It's a lizard, all right? He's kind of like a lizard. He's got a spiky tail. He's got a really big horn on the top of his head. Maybe he's even got a little one sticking off his snout, too. He is already in Gamera for the most part, but don't acknowledge the fact that he already exists in Gamera. What matters is that I'm going to make him, I'm going to trademark him, and I'm going to use him as my brand. And at some point, Toho or Legendary or Gamera or somebody is bound to use a new one. Probably Ultraman, to be honest with you. Some point, somebody's bound to use a new monster that fits the description I just laid out, generally speaking, without being influenced from my work. And would I have the right to go after them? Absolutely not. That's why I'm totally on board with people standing up and saying they're going to boycott X Plus America? Because Summit Kaiju runs X Plus US. So there's a lot of people who are going to boycott X plus US. And I think that's a good way to state your opinion on the matter. To state like, hey, there wasn't enough of a reason to have gone after them other than that you wanted money or clout or whatever. As I've already stated, I personally might have pursued the lawsuit, even at risk of losing it, out of fear that my IP had been stepped on. But that would be up to me to prove that they did steal my work and that it isn't just inspiration and that there is more than a 20% or less than 20% change, you know? Like, I might have, out of loyalty to my own IP, out of fear of being trampled by a major corporation, I don't even judge the decision to pursue the lawsuit. I wouldn't have pursued it in the way he pursued it. I don't know, man. It is tricky. I still get it. I get where Summit Kaiju was coming from. I understand where the concern would come from, especially with Dope Pope. Dope Pope designing Batholet and then working for the MonsterVerse. Well, as Rick found out, Dope Pope started working for the MonsterVerse well after the fact. Methuselah was already designed and in the King of the Monsters trailers by the time Dope Pope started working for the MonsterVerse. So it's not like Dope Pope was there and stole the design. That's also not what the lawsuit alleges. The lawsuit never even alleges that, but because I'm sure he already knew the answer that Dope Pope did not do that. I don't know, man. I get the fear. I get the concern. I get why you would initiate the lawsuit. I don't get why you would initiate it in the way you did. I think that they asked for a lot of stuff they shouldn't have asked for, and I think a lot of the arguments that they used do not hold up. But I understand wanting to protect your IP. I understand wanting to stand up for the IP. I understand the concern. I don't agree that I do think that there's enough change. And I also don't like the precedent because so many kaiju are so similar to so many other kaiju. Is Godzilla really all that different from the beast from 20,000 Fathoms? He stands up on 2 legs instead of 4 and he shoots a beam. I guess his back spines are a little bigger. But like, again, we need to establish a degree of separation, which is for the law to decide, not for us as a fan base. But I think as a fan base, we can make it pretty clear how we feel about cases like this. And I personally don't like what I know about the case so far. I need more proof, and I haven't seen the proof yet. If I see proof that those artists absolutely did see Batholet and went all out to try and recreate it and made some minor changes, I could be on board with the settlement. I still think that they made enough changes, but I could be on board for like, hell yeah, stand up for yourself against a massive corporation who doesn't need all the money in the world. I just haven't seen any of that proof. And based on the legal complaint I have, the proof I have, I can poke holes in. Rick says, I also think not supporting X Plus North America is more justified with the stuff Summit Kaiju has gotten into. Rick is referring to the fact that, for those of you who don't know, Jeremy Allen Souls, who runs Summit Kaiju, was charged earlier this year for assault, for aggravated assault. I don't know the details of that case personally, so that's one of the reasons I've not really addressed it. It also doesn't actually overlap with the Methuselah case, so again, not very relevant to the Methuselah situation, but just throwing that out there. That did happen. Summit Kaiju was arrested for aggravated assault. I totally agree, Realm. Different type of animal based as the basis equals a 30% difference for sure. Like that would be something I would love to see, is like the design process where they go from the bull to Methuselah. I would also personally love to see the design. I didn't see in the case you sent, Rick, that it said domestic assault. I saw that it said aggravated assault, which is different. But I would love to see the design process of Batholet. Like, show me the design process of Batholet. Looks to me to be very inspired by turtles. Methuselah looks to me to be very inspired by a bull. Is Methuselah stronger than Godzilla, D-Man? Hard to say. We barely see Methuselah. We don't know Methuselah's movement speed. What we do know is that Methuselah, despite being so enormous, was able to make it in Boston before most other Titans. You got to remember, over 17 monsters rise up during the events of Godzilla King of the Monsters. We find out it's over 17 because, of course, we find out in like the Kingdom Kong comic book that Camazotz also rose up during that time, you know. So 17 monsters awaken. They're all called the Boston. Methuselah somehow makes it there before almost all of the others. Only 4 monsters make it to Boston. Somehow it's the Muto, who comes from Japan. It's Scylla, who's in the US. That one makes sense. And Methuselah and Behemoth, who was in Rio, which I guess is not terribly far up the coast. So I don't know how I don't know how Methuselah made it, but Methuselah must have a pretty fast movement speed. Methuselah must move pretty quickly in the water. We of course know Methuselah could disguise himself as an island, so Methuselah can spend time in the water. So yeah, I don't know. Methuselah does make it to Boston quicker than most of the other monsters, which to me, yeah, and again, yeah, Orca Boss brings up they could probably use Hollow Earth portals. We don't know how many surface portals are active. What we know in Godzilla Kong the New Empire is that there are surface portals, but not all of them are active. For instance, the one that Kong takes is active in Hollow Earth, but not active on the surface. Oh, Muto was in New Jersey? Childish, I've always thought that the Muto comes from Japan. That is my bad. But New Jersey makes a lot freaking more sense that he could easily make it to Boston. So Methuselah could easily have taken a Hollow Earth portal. We know in the New Empire that there are portals in Hollow Earth that don't link to the surface actively. So I don't know. I don't know where Methuselah would have portaled in and out of. Maybe in the middle of the ocean. I don't know if Methuselah can swim underwater. I think maybe Methuselah could just kind of go turbo jet mode on the ocean and swam his way over here. I feel like doesn't Gamera do that at the start of Gamera Guardian of the Universe? Swim on the top of the ocean and look like a mountain going through the water? You know, because Gamera very frequently looks like a monster that walks on 4 legs with the mountains on its back. That if you made Gamera stone, it would look very similar to Batholet, just saying. But I don't know. We don't know. Methuselah seems to have a pretty decent movement speed. We don't know much else. Methuselah in this bio is stated to be an absolute unit, just a straight up tank, can take an enormous amount of abuse despite not having any special powers. I like to think that Methuselah probably could overpower Godzilla in terms of sheer weight and in terms of if he could catch up to him, but does not have the offensive capability to take down Godzilla. Like, Methuselah is not, first of all, he's a good guy. He's not fighting Godzilla, but if they were to be in a fight, Godzilla's got the ability to, Godzilla's got a lot more combat abilities than Methuselah, but I also don't know what much damage Godzilla could do. Of course, Godzilla can blast through stone. We know that from the worst written moment in the entire Godzilla franchise when Godzilla blasts a hole to the Hollow Earth in a couple hours. So Godzilla can obviously melt straight through stone. So Methuselah is probably not looking great. But I think generally speaking, Methuselah can tank some intense damage. Otherwise, a monster with no special abilities would not be able to survive as a good guy defending humanity against other monsters. Methuselah is implied to have helped out with the Great Titan War as one of the good guy titans fighting alongside humanity. And Godzilla in that case. So Methuselah simply wouldn't have survived to become the theoretically oldest titan other than probably Shimo if he didn't have the absolute highest durability out of any monster in the MonsterVerse. Rick gives us an update here saying, okay, I just checked it. I just checked. It said aggravated assault in a family household with a weapon, which is where domestic assault came from. Well, there you go. Again, don't know the details on that case. Don't know the sentencing on that case, but we do know Summit Kaiju was charged with aggravated assault in a family household. So that's another reason you might consider boycotting X Plus North America, which he runs. Yeah, dude deserves nothing but shame. Yeah, some Kaiju guys suck. So it seems the community speaking what they feel here. Is there a monster in the 98 cartoon series that looks like Methuselah? Jojo, that's a question for Kaijuzilla Beyond Belief, who I'm not even sure if he still goes by that name. I can't remember what name he goes by these days. He changes his name a lot. Maybe. It's been an embarrassingly long time since I've seen the Godzilla 98 animated series. I haven't seen it in probably 15 years. Like, that might be a... No, I don't know, man. I haven't probably... Okay, if I'm being realistic, I probably haven't seen the Godzilla 98 animated series, and I did watch it all the way through the one time. I probably haven't seen it since 2012 or 13. So it's been a really long time. I think I'm going to put the stream on pause for a moment, and then when I come back, we'll switch it over to just a general Godzilla Q&A discussion, and we'll talk about whatever. We don't have to talk about Summit Kaiju and Methuselah. I got all my Methuselah stuff that I wanted to say out of the way, but I am going to go take a break here for just 1 second, and then I'll be right back, and then we can talk about whatever. Bruh, thank you. I appreciate that. Silly, silly, silly. But did I click to unmute? I literally clicked a button to unmute. Did I accidentally I don't know what I unmuted. I was saying, I said thank you to the guy who said that my piano's good. I said thank you to that, and then I was reading Rick's comment. My bad. Rick said, I just wanted to say this. If you still want to get X Plus, you can't. You don't have to get it through North America distribution itself. So that's always an option. Import for Japan. Import from Japan. But do what you want. And I was saying, I totally agree. You do not have to, you can always, am I still muted? Okay, I'm good. You can always get X Plus through Japanese imports, and I think there's other websites you can get it through as well that stock through Japan. Do what you want. I personally, I don't collect X Plus, so it does not impact me. But for those of you X Plus collectors out there, always something to consider, that there are always other options to get the figures you want. All right. Well, general Godzilla Q&A. What you guys want to talk about? Hey, how's it going, James? Thank you for tuning in. Chicken Wing, I totally agree. Godzilla King of the Monsters is my favorite MonsterVerse movie. I freaking love that movie. I love that movie. Does anyone remember Kamobos? Yeah. Dude got his freaking neck ripped out by Godzilla. Monster X could also be a mountain kaiju. I personally want to see. Monster X? Look at that chunky hail with the on his head for sure. If you want to go that route, yeah, man. I don't have any more lore for Ghidorah. Saturn Dusk. Godzilla Fest coming soon. Any predictions what we'll see? Well, I could tell you what I hope to see. I hope to see announcements for Toho's upcoming Godzilla movie. That's what I would like to see. Do I actually think we're going to get that? I'd say the odds are unlikely, but I'd like to see that. I've also seen that they have 2 sections for announcements. Look, here's what I'll say. I just put the... Oh, here, I'll read Rick's comment before getting to this, but... I don't know why we don't get VFX breakdowns of the MonsterVerse posters, Neko. I would love to. We get tons of VFX breakdowns for the -1 posters. I think it's because the MonsterVerse makes too many posters and it's just not standard in America. It's not customary in America to put that much care into showing your work, especially with stuff like that. But Rick says, if worse comes to worse about the situation, me and D-Man have an idea to make a fan-made MonsterVerse declassified book with Titans unused or forgotten about. We sure do, and I actually really like it. I love the idea. I would love to see Legendary do it themselves, but I love the idea. Anyways, as for Godzilla Fest, they have 2 sections for announcements. What I can say is this. I know Toho's got some really, really exciting, really big stuff behind the scenes that is cooking. I know of some big stuff that I'm very excited about and I cannot wait for. And I cannot really say more, but there is more to announce than just a title, you know? They've got some really exciting stuff behind the scenes that I'm very, very excited about. Very interested in. Yeah. I don't know. The Supernova teaser could always come out before Godzilla Godzilla, what the? I'm mixing comments here. The Supernova teaser very well could come out before the -2 teaser. I don't know. I honestly think it is a fairly decent possibility. I don't know why Toho hasn't done anything yet. In terms of like, I mean, Toho really likes to wait till they have things ready to go, you know? Think about it with Godzilla -1. they waited until they had a teaser ready to reveal the poster. The poster was revealed and the teaser was revealed. Like, they waited for a minute to give us stuff. So I can tell you that's the real reason. Toho likes to wait. Godzilla Singular Point. Godzilla Singular Point came absolutely out of nowhere. You had industry experts like, I believe, August Ragone and I think Matt Frank were out there like, no, I've never heard of this, when Singular Point leaked just before it happened. And they were like, I never heard of that. That seems fake to me. And then boom, Singular Point is confirmed. We have all this information. We have a trailer all at once. I very much think it's going to be very similar when it comes down to the new Toho Godzilla movie. I very much think it'll be like, here's the announcement, that's the title, that's the poster, that's the teaser, all at once. I don't know if a teaser will be ready in time for Godzilla Festival. I don't know when they would start marketing that film. I don't know if a teaser would be ready for Godzilla Festival. What I'm hoping for at the least is a title and cast reveal at Godzilla Festival. Maybe they won't even feel comfortable doing a cast reveal yet, as that might tip the hand on where things are heading. I do know a bit of the cast of the movie, and it tips the hand on what they are actually doing. On if they're, there's still some debate on if they're actually doing a -1 sequel. A cast reveal would probably give that away. So it's possible they don't feel comfortable giving that information out yet. I would like a title. That also could tip the hand on if it's literally a -1 sequel. Which again, there's still some debate out there as to if it's a -1 sequel. But what I'm really hoping for is a title and a cast reveal. That's what I want to see at Godzilla Festival. I think it's okay to say we already know the cast. It was leaked in the casting call. Really, Rick? You'll have to send me that. Send me that, because I'd love to see what info's out there. If it was in a casting call, it wasn't really leaked then, was it? It was not leaked if it's in a casting call. But you have to send me that. I'd love to see what... Send me that on Twitter. I'd love to see what was published. Because I'd like to know what I'm allowed to talk about. But anyways... I would like to see that, especially because if you remember, at Godzilla Festival 2022 is when they announced the next Godzilla movie was going to be directed by Takashi Yamazaki, and they showed the G from the -1 logo. That's all they really said. It's also when please remember, very importantly, it's when they said that they were not going to move forward with a Shin Godzilla sequel despite wanting to, because Mr. Higuchi and Anno couldn't return yet, so they were not going to move forward with the Shin Godzilla sequel. Yamazaki wasn't going to move forward with Shin Godzilla without Anno and Higuchi, so they didn't do Shin Godzilla sequel. But I see, Rick. Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, so they didn't want that out there. Huh. Very interesting. Well, if you have the info, send it over on Twitter. Yeah, I would like to see them follow the route of Godzilla Fest 2022 for now, because also remember, Godzilla Fest 2022 is a full year before Godzilla -1 releases, which I'm hoping we're looking at the same situation. I think in 2026, November 3rd, 2026, I would expect the Toho's new Godzilla movie is going to come out then. I have a feeling they're going to stick to those November release dates. No chance that's how many people like this video. Somebody else better like this video right now. I think that they're probably going to follow a similar marketing strategy just because it was so successful for -1. So why wouldn't they? Other than that, maybe they learned their lesson from the proximity with New Empire and how that essentially took -1 out of foreign theaters before they were ready. So very possible that they put the next Toho Godzilla movie out before, I guess, before that window, before the November window, just to try and avoid the Supernova release date. But I'm gonna hope at the very least we get a title and a cast reveal at Thank you, Mechazilla74. Thank you. I'm going to hope we get a Supernova cast reveal and title reveal at Godzilla Festival. I'm going to then expect that in the summer, we're going to start to get the teasers and whatnot. But we will see. Yeah, Johnzilla, King of the Monsters. It sure was. That's sure was the outpost Methuselah was housed in. It struck me only after people started to comment it on my video. Alden Tolbert, thank you so much for the super chat, man. Thank you so much. Guys, get some hype for Alden Tolbert in the chat, please. Let's get some W's. Alden Tolbert says, MonsterVerse Mothra is the godmother of the Titans gangs. Yeah, dude, she totally is, because she runs it. She's like the godmother, for sure. She's like in charge. She bosses them around. She's telling them what to do. I love that. I love Mothra in the MonsterVerse. She's so great. I want a Chibi Godzilla animated movie, or just theatrically animated Godzilla movie, or a DC Godzilla animated film. I actually don't know much about what's going on the animation end of things. I think that they're still producing some... Thank you guys for hyping up Alden. I appreciate you guys. I think that they're still going to produce some Chibi Godzilla stuff. Like, that's still running, but I don't know. I've heard many people express interest in a Chibi Godzilla movie. I'm talking like people like Shinji Nishikawa express interest in a Chibi Godzilla movie. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the plan is for Godzilla in animation. I can tell you that they're not done with Godzilla in animation. Singular Point's not the last time we will see Godzilla in animation beyond Chibi Godzilla. I just don't know what form it's gonna take or when. I mean, it's potential that they could announce that at Godzilla Festival. That could happen. How do you feel about Kiryu in the MonsterVerse? I feel like the time for Mechagodzilla came and went, you know, like Mechagodzilla already appeared in Godzilla vs. Kong. He already achieved what Mechagodzilla is there to achieve, which is to become the superior Godzilla. That's how Mechagodzilla's been since 1974. Mechagodzilla 1974 takes down Godzilla, and Godzilla has to team up to take him down. Godzilla then has to overcome the odds to take down Mechagodzilla in 1975, and to be honest, he couldn't achieve it if Katsura didn't take her own life. If Katsura didn't sacrifice herself, Godzilla was on the losing end of that fight when it was an actual 2v1. Obviously, it was a 2v1. It was stacked against him. Godzilla was getting slapped around by Titanosaurus up until humanity stepped in with their disruptor beam that they could shoot Titanosaurus with and break the brain control, and up until Mechagodzilla malfunctioned due to Katsura. So Godzilla was really up against it in the Showa series. In the Heisei series, Mechagodzilla straight up kills the dude, and Rodan revives Godzilla, and it's only through an extra power-up that Godzilla can take down Mechagodzilla. In the Millennium series, Godzilla and Mechagodzilla are actually mostly evenly matched. They're mostly evenly matched, but technically speaking, Kiryu has the ability to kill shot Godzilla with the absolute zero if she could just land the shot. The MonsterVerse already achieved it. Mechagodzilla shows up, he puts the absolute smackdown on Godzilla, and then Godzilla has to team up to take down Mechagodzilla. Like, the time passed. Kiryu is a more interesting, compelling idea to me. To take the bones of Dagon and turn them into Kiryu is the idea they should have gone with, but maybe they didn't get to because it's possible Toho just didn't want them to acknowledge those Godzilla bones as Godzilla bones. Or possible they just didn't think of it. But the time already passed. I would think it has already passed. Chicken Wing, who's stronger, MonsterVerse, Godzilla, or Kong in terms of brute strength? There's a whole movie. It's a whole movie about that, and the answer is Godzilla. Certainly with the way that they're portrayed in the Wingard films. Rick says, speaking of Singular Point, totally getting season 2. Yeah. I despise the show, but I'm sad for people who loved it. I love Singular Point. It's one of my favorite pieces of Godzilla media, and it is a bummer to me that things went down the way they did. I would love Mokele Membe to come back. Mokele Membe is a really, really cool addition to the MonsterVerse lore in the Godzilla King of the Monsters novelization. I loved that, and I'd love them to bring him into the movie. Hey D-Man, what's your favorite Godzilla figure brand? SH Monster Arts or Haya Toys? That's from King Kiryu. Well, King Kiryu, I have ordered multiple Haya figures. I ordered Haya Godzilla Evolved, still don't have it. I ordered Haya Kong 2024, no Beast Glove version, the one with the axe, still don't have it. I ordered Haya's Shimo, and it somehow that one arrived first, despite being the one I ordered last. My opinion of Haya based on their releases is pretty negative overall, so I'm going to say SH Monster Arts on that one. As far as my overall favorite Godzilla brand, Bandai is actually probably my favorite, which is a big change up from how I used to feel. I didn't used to get it. I was always like, they're children's toys. They're not that good. I don't understand what people love about them, but I really appreciate the affordability, especially when they're not being sold on the $35 market like here in the US, like when you can get them for what they're meant to be priced at, which is like 10 to 20 bucks. So I'm all for Bandai's affordability. I love the sculpts of the Bandai. I love the art aesthetic of the Bandais. Generally speaking, though, I'm a big Monster Arts fan. I know people have big issues with Monster Arts, and that's totally fine, and they're all pretty justified in those opinions, but I do like me a Monster Arts quite a bit. I love the articulation of them. I also am really liking the Super 7 Ultimates. They're just not, like, I can no longer afford SH or Super 7, so I don't collect either. At the moment, I'm not collecting. At the moment, I'm not really collecting in general because I just don't have money. King Kiryu, I ordered the Haya figures off of all different websites. Big Bad Toy Store was one of them. There was another one. What is it? It's another one a lot of people really use. I can't remember. I think I ordered Godzilla Evolved off of Amazon and the order got canceled, so I ordered him off of a website Kaiju Connect told me about, and I still don't have him, so I don't know, man. I got them from different websites. Bandai's new Little Godzilla is amazing quality. I don't have it and I haven't seen it, but I'd believe it. Bandai's doing really, really well. Thoughts on Godzilla taking down Scar King's army in the Ancient Titan War? That's from Nuclear Goji Edits. Well, I've gone in depth about that in my Godzilla and my Godzilla Kong the New Empire Godzillathon review, which came out a couple weeks ago. I know it's a podcast format, so it's not the most engaging, but if you want to go listen to that, I would highly recommend it. I go very into depth on all of my thoughts on that. Personally speaking, I think it deflates the stakes of the movie overall because it just was an underdeveloped plotline. I don't think that they did a good job setting it up very well. Don't worry, D-Man. Hopefully my $5 can help you get some McNuggies. Rick, you have no idea how much it really does help. I appreciate it so much, man. Every single person who supports the channel in any way, from liking the videos, from hyping the videos, from sharing the videos, from just simply watching the videos, all the way to my channel members like Saturn Dusk and Godzilla 154 and my Patreon supporters. It goes so incredibly far, and I appreciate it so much. So to all of you who support the channel in whatever way you support it, whether you watch the videos, whether you support in a more direct way, I really appreciate it. All of it goes so far, and it means everything to me. Dr. Kirby says, hey D-Man, would you ever see Manda in the MonsterVerse, and how would you think he would fit? Well, I don't personally think that there's really a need for Manda in the MonsterVerse in a post-Tiamat world. It could kind of be actually really cool if Manda's introduced in the MonsterVerse as like another member of Tiamat's species. That'd be kind of neat. I'd like that a lot. Or if they're like, you know, they're species that are somewhat interconnected, that'd also be really cool. But I honestly, this might be a hot take. I like Tiamat more than I like Manda. Manda in the Showa series is fine. He's fine. Manda in Millennium is fine, but he's such fodder. Tiamat was also fodder, but she looked beautiful doing it. So Tiamat, I like Tiamat. Yeah, that's right, Taste. I was thinking about that too. Manda could be the male version and Tiamat could be the female version. What's up, Methuselah Kaiju fan? How's it going, man? Hope you're doing well. The new Playmates TMNT Godzilla figures are fire. I have seen a lot of people very mixed on those. I've seen people who are very in love with those figures. I've seen a lot of people who think that they're just all right. But I'm glad you're into them. I'm probably not going to pick them up, but that's pretty cool. Sharon says, D-Man, I hit 500 subs since last live stream when I was saying how close I was. Dude, congratulations. That's so awesome. 500 is such a cool sub goal. You're going to be at 1,000 before you even know it. Just keep it up, man. That's awesome. Congratulations on that. Yeah, and we do have Lahamu? I don't know how to say that name, to be honest, Enzuru. But we have Lahamu, the daughter of Tiamat, which is awesome. I hope that they do something with that in the future. Would King Caesar team up with Kong? Jojo, it depends on what King Caesar you're talking about. We don't know enough about the Millennium King Caesar. We just simply don't know enough. We never really got to experience much of him because he was all brainwashed. As far as Showa King Caesar, absolutely. Dude was a protector of Okinawa. He was a defender of Okinawa. I would think as long as Kong's got Okinawa's interests in mind, King Caesar is going to be on his side. And it seems that they consider Mechagodzilla a global threat, and so King Caesar is willing to fight Mechagodzilla, so I think he'd be willing to fight alongside Kong against a global threat as well, which, unfortunately, in the MonsterVerse is actually the only type of threat that exists. There are no city-level threats in the MonsterVerse. Scylla is the closest we've gotten to a city-level threat. The Muta were a global threat. The Skull Crawlers are said to be able to proliferate out of control and take over the globe if Kong dies. You know, Godzilla King of the Monsters, obviously an apocalyptic scenario with King Ghidorah and the Mass Awakening, and then Godzilla versus Kong Mechagodzilla could kill Godzilla, which would disrupt the nature's balance, and that'd be a global issue as well. And then New Empires, obviously, Scar King and Shimo are going to lead a global war against the surface world, so every monster in the MonsterVerse seems to be a global threat. So yeah, King Caesar has definitely got Kong's back. Methuselah Kaiju fan says, personally, I would love to see Tiamat interacting with Manda. I would too, and I don't want monsters to exclusively fight. My favorite moments of the Wingard films are the moments where they're not fighting. That's what he does. That's just the thing that I think he does better than any other filmmaker, is those moments where the monsters are not fighting. And I would love to see a scene like, you know, a Wingard styled scene of the monsters interacting with each other between Scylla or Tiamat and Manda. Do you think, this from Jojo says, do you think Mothra and Biollante will appear in Godzilla 2026 film if Toho confirms it's a sequel? So you're saying if the next Toho Godzilla movie is a sequel to -1, do I think we're going to get Mothra and Biollante? I don't know. I don't know. There's almost guaranteed to be an enemy monster. I can't say much more than that, but I would love for it to be Biollante, because I think Biollante very much fits the aesthetic of the -1 universe. I think Mothra is also always the perfect gateway into mysticism. If you want to introduce mysticism and fantasy into a Godzilla series, you cannot do it in a better way than with Mothra. So I would love for that as well. Both together would be very, very surprising. You know, how do those monsters interact with each other? What role do they play? That'd be a very interesting, compelling dynamic. We've never seen Mothra interact with Biollante, so it'd be very, very cool. Enzuru says, oh, I was hoping to see a fight between Kong and King Caesar just to witness how Kong would handle fighting an opponent who knows ancient martial arts. Well, you know, just because I think that personality-wise they could get along doesn't mean they wouldn't fight. If you want to see those monsters fight, I also want to see those monsters fight. I pitched in a video a long time ago, based on some concept art some fan art that was done by, who did it? It wasn't Lenny. It was oh man, who did that concept art? Fan art, not concept art. Who was it? I can picture it. It's got King Caesar in the chains. Dang it. Why am I drawing a blank on who the artist was? Someone in the chat might know. I mean, you guys know the artwork I'm talking about. That artwork is so popular in the fan base. I'm trying to see if I have it saved. It was Larry. It was Larry Quatch. Larry Quatch did this awesome fan art of King Caesar in chains. He looks so badass. And I pitched a while ago that you could, it's a little bit at this point, it'd be redundant with Scar King, but I pitched like, essentially Kong meets a Titan who had a very different experience with humanity than he did. You know, Kong obviously was the protector of the Iwi. Kong had a very close relationship with the Iwi. If you want to believe the Skull Island anime's canon, Kong had an even closer connection to that one native chick. As far as the films go, Kong's a protector. He's got a connection to Gia. Monarch has always treated him generally right, despite the fact that humanity destroyed the ecosystem on Skull Island. He probably doesn't know that. And as far as he's concerned, humans took him to the Hollow Earth and gave him a new home. They gave him an upgrade with the Beast Glove. Kong's had a very cozy relationship with humanity. I love the idea that we would get a dark reflection of that, a monster that was used in the original Titan War, where humanity got a little too big for their britches, and started to use the monsters in war against each other. And we would meet King Caesar, a monster who's still in an ancient temple locked away somewhere in some dark dungeon, who has a really, really different experience with humanity. One that was really twisted by the war, one that was used as a weapon, and one that wants to declare war and revenge on humanity. And Kong's arc with that monster would be redeeming it. King Caesar's, obviously, we know King Caesar to be a hero. And so having Kong interact with the monster so similar to him in so many ways, but with such a different background than him, would be really cool. I'd love that. And also the way those two monsters would fight, I think would be really awesome. You know, Kong fighting another mammal monster would be really cool. Kong has actually never really fought many other mammal monsters other than Scar King. He's never really fought any. His son, Kiko, fought a big bear in Son of Kong, but King Kong himself never really fights mammals. And Kong fighting a lion would be really sweet. You know, it's a faster and sharper monster than him, but doesn't have the brute strength he has. So it would create a really interesting dynamic. I would love that. But, you know, that's just my fanfic that I've been pitching for year after year since 2021. So Taste says, I don't think we need to add every single Toho Kaiju into the MonsterVerse, and I agree with that too. I actually really like that the MonsterVerse has so many unique monsters. One thing I don't love is like the general opinion where I see so many people being like, I'm so sick of the Toho monsters in the MonsterVerse. First of all, we're not really going to ever get them with the Hollywood budget that we have with the MonsterVerse, so enjoy it while it lasts. MonsterVerse isn't going to last forever, so I'm all here for Toho Monsters to get a MonsterVerse revamp. It's one of the things that King of the Monsters is so cool for. Even with -1, you see the use of Godzilla is so sparing and deliberate compared to the MonsterVerse, and it's not just to serve the story, but to serve the budget and technology that they have at their disposal as well. So I'm all for the monsters, the Toho monsters getting giant Hollywood revamps with the MonsterVerse. I think it's sick. I'll also say, like, the MonsterVerse has done a very good job with unique original monsters. The Mutos are unique and of their own. We obviously have our boy Methuselah, Scylla, Tiamat, Behemoth, and then into the expanded canon, plenty more. As far as the films go, then we have Shimo and Scar King. Shimo's become a beloved fan favorite at this point. Monarch Legacy of Monsters introduces the Ion Dragon. So I think that the MonsterVerse has done a very good job using lots of unique monsters and having a very fleshed out world of its own. And that's why I'm totally down for more Toho monsters, because predominantly the MonsterVerse is made up of its own monsters. Hey D-Man, if the skeleton in Godzilla's temple was a member of Anguirus' species, does that mean there could be a live specimen out there that Monarch hasn't discovered? Dr. Kirby said that. Dr. Kirby, absolutely. You could always reintroduce Anguirus into the MonsterVerse. Anguirus has not had a proper introduction to the MonsterVerse, so by bringing in Anguirus, it's the true first introduction of the character. If they license the character, he could show up in any way. Maybe he's sleeping under the surface and hasn't been discovered yet. Maybe Anguirus is in the Hollow Earth and hasn't been found by Monarch yet. Monarch has barely explored the Hollow Earth, so there's plenty of ways to introduce Anguirus into the MonsterVerse. And yeah, it would just be another, then it would retroactively confirm that that skeleton, which obviously is supposed to be Anguirus, is another member of Anguirus' species. So I think that'd be really, really cool. I like all the Frostvark love in the chat. And Jojo, I agree. The Ion Dragon technically doesn't die in Monarch Legacy of Monsters. He gets scorched pretty bad and he gets his arm ripped off. But technically, the last we see of him, he's still alive. So he could still be out there. I don't know if he could heal from that, but he could still be out there. Taste says, Beargun and Megalon seem the most fitting to be in the MonsterVerse. They're both burrowing kaiju, and we have the Hollow Earth. Yeah, and I'd like to see... Well, Megalon's got the drill hands, which are, like, really wild, and still, I know people are like, why do you care about realism? Quit bringing up realism. Blah, blah, blah. You don't know how to write. The MonsterVerse doesn't have to just go all out and throw all the rules away simply just because it can. And just say, well, the Showa series did it. Stop using logic from a series that came out over 60 years ago at a time when continuity wasn't really popular. And also, those movies were made for children. The MonsterVerse does not have to be. I think the MonsterVerse is best when it isn't. So for me, Megalon still doesn't fit the aesthetic of the monsters we've seen, unless he undergoes some sort of modifications. Now, I'm all for a major redesign. Like, I loved what they did with Megalon in the short film. In the Godzilla Fest short film, Megalon is so sick. And I'd be totally down for Megalon to be bioengineered. I think that would also be really awesome. But as far as Megalon as he just showing up as he is, kind of, in my opinion, he a little bit breaks the aesthetic of the universe. The drill hands are just too much for me. But that's me. And obviously, I draw a much harder line than a lot of other people. So if you're all for the drill hands, go for it. If you love Megalon, at this point, I would not throw a fit if Megalon showed up with the drill hands. I wouldn't make the biggest deal of it. King Kiryu says, well, D-Man, he might actually be dead because since he lost his arm, he could have bled to death. Well, King Kiryu, not only that, but the Ion Dragon, not only did he get his arm ripped off, but the dude got hucked through a portal. We don't know where he wound up. If he wound up at the bottom of the ocean, he probably drowned down there. Anywhere else he wound up, he could be absolutely food. If he wound up in the Hollow Earth, dude's gonna get munched by another monster. He no longer can fly away to get away. He's slow. She, actually, I think the Ion Dragon's supposed to be a she, but she'd just be totally toast, man. She'd be dinner for a monster in the Hollow Earth. Rick says, if I were to direct a MonsterVerse and Legendary is interested in using Gamera, I would bring Daimajin, because he's awesome. I would have him fight Kong, sword versus axe, make him the anti-hero. That's a really cool idea. Daimajin's very underrated, and that'd be really shocking. That'd be a big jump for the mythology of the universe in a way that I think could be really, really cool. And yeah, the sword versus the axe would be sick. But yeah, Gamera's the one we really want. What are your thoughts on Yugoth from Return to Skull Island comic? I haven't read it yet, to be honest with you. I have not read the comic yet. I don't own it. Is it only digital releases, or is there a physical release of it? I want to get the physical release of it whenever that happens. Unless there isn't going to be one, then I'll get the digital release. So, Methuselah Kaiju says, I think the Ion Dragon can live in water. That's possible, because he does have gills, doesn't he, now that I'm thinking about the design? And the Ion Dragon is supposed to be the monster that took down the Loden. So actually, Methuselah, you're definitely right. He almost definitely could survive under the ocean. I'm positive he has gills, so he's probably fine down there. And if he's the monster that took down the Loden, he's probably like a sea monster. So there is a physical, really. That's what I need. So I got to get the physical copy of Return to Skull Island. I'll be honest, I still don't know how I feel about Return to Skull Island. I still feel it's literally paper issues week to week. That's awesome. I did not know that. That's what we get when someone else handles the distribution. That's a big step up in quality from where we've left off with the MonsterVerse comics at the moment. I don't know how I feel about it. They took this, what was it, Brian Duffield who was showrunning that series? They took the series away from him and didn't consult him on where it would go, kind of took his ideas, but then went a totally different direction. It just feels weird to steal someone's unique vision for what the story was going to be and completely take it away from them and do it without him. Like, why wouldn't you just bring him back? Why wouldn't you bring him back and have him write the comic? I feel a little weird about that. It's a bummer. It's just like, can the MonsterVerse not hold down one consistent storyteller? Why is Greg Keyes the best we've got? Give me something in outside of the novelizations. Not that Greg Keyes is bad. I really like the novelizations for Godzilla King of the Monsters, and I think the Godzilla vs. Kong novelization is pretty good. So yeah, Kong versus Daimajin fight like Kratos versus Thor in God of War is what I'm thinking, D-Man, if you know what I mean. I've never played God of War, but I actually did watch my little brother play that fight, and it was epic. It was so freaking cool. Hey, D-Man, do you have a problem with King of the Monsters stating Mothra having radiation? Mothra is technically supposed to be a pure being. Well, you know, no, not really. I think, you know, my big issue with the MonsterVerse is that all of the monsters are atomic monsters. All of them are atomic monsters. Godzilla's not unique in that. Kong is an atomic monster. I don't have an issue with Mothra being an atomic monster. If every monster is an atomic monster, that's what my issue is. It strips a lot of the uniqueness out of it. I would like to see them explore it a little more thoroughly than just a surface level, like they produce radiation. Of course, Michael Doherty did confirm on the Reddit AMA what we've already known. We've already known this, but the Titans don't release any lethal forms of radiation. They produce some sort of magical healing form of radiation. Again, we've known that since the movie came out, if you're observant. It's not like they're producing ionizing radiation, but they seem to consume ionizing radiation. It's the only thing we know that they really consume. And they soak up Hollow Earth energy. So, yeah, I don't know. It kind of, in my opinion, it a little bit weakens the whole atomic aspect of things. So I don't actually have a problem with Mothra having that origin. That's everybody's got that. So, yeah, I don't know. I didn't know that. I did not know that Shimo has gills. I've never noticed that in the movie. I see some Methuselah Kaiju fan love in the chat. That's fun. Methuselah Kaiju fan, is your name tied to the YouTuber Methuselah Kaiju, the old YouTuber? Are you Methuselah Kaiju, or are you a fan of Methuselah Kaiju? Like, where's the name come from? I've always just assumed you're a big fan of the old YouTuber Methuselah Kaiju, who I actually don't know if he's still around. Taste says, I kind of wish the Mutos and Skullcrawlers came back. They felt like more personal enemies to Godzilla and Kong, and I wish they were reoccurring enemies that the two always have to deal with. I agree. I really thought that we would get... I don't know about the Muto, to be honest with you. I like that the Muto are like... Godzilla took out the last ones that were a threat to him. The female Muto that's still alive, the Queen Muto, isn't really an active threat to him, so he'll leave it be. But as for Kong, I would have loved to see him have to deal with the Skullcrawlers more. And I would have loved for once he went to Hollow Earth him to be like, oh yeah, this is where these things are supposed to be. They invaded Skull Island, but this is where they're supposed to be. You know, Hollow Earth was really scary concept in Kong Skull Island. It was this red, glowing, deep pocket of hell beneath the island. And it was like, I could just picture it was swarmed with so many Skullcrawlers. They were crawling all over each other. And then they don't go that route, you know, when we see it. So I would have liked to see the Skullcrawlers play a bigger part in the Hollow Earth ecosystem. We see lots of Kong Skull Island creatures return in Return to Skull Island. Well, that's great, Hassan. I gotta read that. I didn't read it yet, so I'm behind. I'm out of the loop on that one. That was actually what I was thinking for my Godzilla vs. Kong rewrite. Kong goes to the Hollow Earth not to rediscover his ancestral home, but to deal with the Skullcrawlers on their own turf. I love that. That's a fantastic, fantastic motivation for Kong. I think that's sick. Saturn Dusk. I only ordered the one, but I got it today. I got it. So I'll open it up at a video at some point with you guys. Probably a short. I'll open it up in a short or something. Do you think we could see in Supernova some of the 17 and counting mentioned in King of the Monsters, like Behemoth, Abaddon, or Quetzalcoatl? I am kind of doubting it at this point, Giga Kaiju. It seems like the MonsterVerse has moved so far beyond that, like, I mean, if you read the charts in Godzilla Kong the New Empire, they're naming up to like Titan 24 and beyond. Like, we're into the like multiple dozens of like, am I crazy? Do they not have like well beyond 24? I'm pretty sure they have like well beyond Titan 24. I think 24 is stated to be Tiamat or Scylla in New Empire, but I think we moved so beyond the concept of the 17 and counting at this point that I don't know if the MonsterVerse has really any interest in fleshing that out. It seemed like the time for that has passed a long time ago. Other than in the expanded media. The expanded media, like the comics and video games, still do show a certain level of interest and loyalty to the King of the Monsters stuff. Like, I love that the Orca Beta returned in Kong Survivor Instinct, which I still need to finish. I need to play that with you guys. So as far as the movies go, I don't know. It's possible. It does seem to me, based on that teaser for Supernova, that there's like something eerie going on, you know? Like there's some potential second mass awakening occurring. Something's going down. Titan sightings are all over the globe. So it's possible we finally get some of those Titans. I love a second mass awakening scene that spotlights all new monsters. All new monsters from the King of the Monsters era that we didn't see yet. You know? I love that. I don't know when the next Kong Survivor Instinct stream is going to be, but I gotta set it up soon. Oh, I see. Metho Kaiju fan says, yep, I'm a fan of the original Metho Kaiju guy. We even talked a lot of times on Discord, but he's not active anymore. Really cool guy. That's good to hear. I'm glad that he was a cool guy. I didn't think he was around anymore. I just hadn't heard about him in a long time. I think I'm probably going to wrap it up here, guys. We've been streaming for quite a while, so I think I'm going to wrap it up here. So send in your very last questions. Hey, D-Man, not Godzilla related, but how would you feel about the Orca versus Jaws movie in which the tone of the movie is similar to the original Jaws, Orca based on the 1977 Orca the Killer Whale? I remember that movie. I have seen that movie. I don't have an opinion on a Orca versus Jaws movie, to be honest with you. I'm not huge into shark movies. What do you think of the theory that the pink solar energy is going to play a big part in Supernova? The mobile game is pushing it right now. Oh, I didn't know the mobile game was pushing it. I did not know the mobile game was pushing the pink stuff. I'm going to guess it's going to have some relevance. It's a really, really strange thing to introduce in the comic for it to go nowhere. And it's introduced in the comic. Tiamat then gets extra attention in Kong Survivor Instinct. And then beyond that, now if it's in Titan Chasers, it feels like it's got to be something, you know. There's got to be something that it's building up to. So I would think that, yeah, it very well could. You know, I don't know what role it'll play, but I'm definitely into that theory. Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, Rick. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. You know, Jojo, I don't know if Destroyer will ever appear. I certainly don't know if they'll build upon the action in Destroyer and King of the Monsters, but if Destroyer does appear in the MonsterVerse, that's the way to do it. It just seems so like that seems to be what they originally were going to do, is like build off of the action in Destroyer with Destroyer. So yeah, I don't know, man. Alrighty, gang, I am going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, you guys. I'm hoping to do more live streams soon, so hopefully this is not the last one we do for a while. Like I said, I still got to finish up Kong Survivor Instinct. I still got plenty of stuff that I got to do with you guys. And yeah, I'd love to have more Godzilla Q&As in the future. I'll do this last question from Metho Kaiju fan here. Metho Kaiju fan says, what do you think about Jurassic World Rebirth? Would you would you have loved to see a fight between the T-Rex, D-Rex, and smaller Spinos? Personally, I don't need a versus match in the movie. I would have liked more emphasis on the D-Rex. I thought it was so fantastic, but I really, really liked I love that. Please don't go. Sorry, man. I gotta take off. But I really liked Jurassic World Rebirth. I really loved the D-Rex. I didn't need a versus match. Would it have been cool? Sure, but I didn't need it. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. But yes, I hope to do more Godzilla Q&As with you guys soon, more live ones. I do have more Godzilla Q&As going up soon, and I'm going to get back into news videos here really soon. So thank you guys all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you all next time for the next one. I really appreciate it, you guys. D-Man out.